first time I ever heard Chappell Roan was in the fall of last year, and it was in a very non-traditional way. Basically, I attended a fundraiser in Boston that was a house basement show that was also a fundraiser for gender-affirming care surgery, that was also a marriage ceremony for two of the roommates that lived in the house, and during that marriage ceremony, one of the guests pulled out a guitar and started playing Pink Pony Club, and everyone around me sang along, and in that moment, I realized I had missed a lot. So on the way home, I decided to listen to Chappell Roan's 2023 record, The Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess. And everything instantly clicked. Okay, so if you're watching this video, I'm gonna assume that you know who Chappell Roan is, but in the event that you don't, she is a pop singer from the Midwest. She has been in the game for about 5 years now, but recently blew up due to a combination of factors, including social media and word of mouth, as well as the fact that she recently opened for Olivia Rodrigo on the Guts tour. And gay people love her. Let's talk about why. To put it simply, Chappell Roan makes really quality, fun, upbeat, campy pop music. She also has a very unique brand. Chappell Roan herself describes her own persona as a drag queen. And if you're unaware, yes, women can in fact do drag. I have a whole video that unironically explains this concept if you want to go take a look. And her music and her visual aesthetic match that vibe in the sense that they're very maximalist and over the top, which is a nice visual contrast to the clean girl aesthetic that is popular with a lot of pop stars right now.
And it's also interesting to me because isn't it a good thing that queerness, that a lesbian artist, that somebody whose aesthetic, whose vibe is drag, goes mainstream? Like, isn't that fun? Isn't that great? That it's no longer something that you have to like listen to in the shadows, that these types of artists are shut out of amassing a wide audience. Like, I think that it's actually, I think it's good. I don't think that she is at all selling out and is only is using is using queerness as a way to sell albums. Like, she has been doing this for a long time. She didn't just start doing this. Like, she didn't just manufacture this because it was cooked up in a lab over at her record company, where they were like, yeah, this is going to be the vibe. This is what's popular with young people, with, whatever, your target audience.
Now. And that brand is very identifiable and accessible. For example, on Chappell's most recent tour, she has what is essentially a dress code, where audience members are asked to show up in different visual aesthetics that coordinate with some of the themes on the album. So, people are doing the makeup, they're learning the hot to-go dance.
Gays have been begging the pop girls to go back to outlandish weird shit for years, and now, yeah, that was like one complaint with a big complaint with Lady Gaga, is that Gaga moved away from the queerness of Little Monsters, or like her Little Monsters era. And gone were the costumes. Gone was the, was the theatrical queer aesthetic. And in place of it was like a leather jacket and jeans. Miss Roan is now doing it, and they've switched it up because she's a lesbian, and it makes me so mad. People are just finding all sorts of ways to be certified haters.
Chappell also takes inspiration from various aspects of internet culture, growing a sense of community online by making people feel like they're in on the meme. And finally, Chappell Roan is a lesbian, and speaks very directly to the lesbian experience. A fact that I think pop music fans often take for granted, because it wasn't that long ago that the most common form of lesbian representation that you'd see in music was like I Kissed a Girl by Katy Perry. Wink wink, it's ironic, it's funny, and fetishy, and not a legitimate experience that artists can make music about. Pop artists in particular.
Have I listened to her album?
Okay,
yeah.
So there are like two camps of people who are talking about Chappell Roan right now, similarly to how people reacted to the rise of Renee Rapp last year. There's, the camp of people who are engaging in normal fandom activities, they're making fan cams and dedicated Twitter accounts, and they're showing up hours early to festivals to try to barricade for their set, normal stuff.
I just have to say, okay, between this and between the weirdos who are not wanting Bridgerton to have any women loving women storylines, even though that was in the books, Seems to me as if we've got a problem with lesbian representation in pop culture. That's what this is showing.
And then there's like another camp of people.
Oh, and by the way, these are not coming from homophobes. These are coming from people who are totally fine with male gay storylines. They're all about like hot dudes hooking up. MLM, not that type of MLM, not multi-level marketing scheme. But it's somebody who's like, I've seen all these TikToks and these tweets and stuff where totally fine with MLMs, not down with WLWs. And a lot of what I've seen is coming from women. Straight women who want to see two dudes banging, but don't want to see women loving women.
Who are acting a little bit gatekeepy about Chappell's success, and that vocal minority is not necessarily getting louder, but is definitely getting boosted kind of in the social media algorithms as Chappell gets more popular. By gatekeepy, I mean that every time Chappell Roan plays a big event like Boston Calling or Coachella or most recently Govball, which I attended, there always seems to be some kind of rampant discourse.
There's no lesbians in Bridgerton. There are in the Bridgerton books, and they changed storylines for the show. From my understanding.
Course that to me is just so antithetical to the success of a mainstream artist, which if you're a fan of Chappell Roan, you should want. So let me just do a brief rundown of some of the Chappell Roan conversation that has been happening online in the last couple of months. Just a disclaimer here that I am not legally responsible for the amount of your brain cells that I kill during this. Okay, number one, Good Luck Babe is about lesbians and not at all about bisexual women. Basically, a couple months ago, Chappell Roan released her first single outside of the Midwest Princess album called Good Luck Babe. In the simplest of terms, the song is about a gay woman watching presumably a gay partner who she had an experience with at one point in time, settling down with a man and fighting off the internal feelings of being a gay woman. Now, people on TikTok have been posting their various reactions to the bridge of this song that kind of states the message of the whole song in a very specific and outright way. It's obvious that Chappell Roan has a primarily queer fan base, and basically lesbians have been expressing their frustration at bisexual women who are calling it the definitive bi girl anthem. Now personally, I don't think it's a song about a bi girl in a relationship with a man. I think it's a song about—
Well, and that was something with Renee Rapp, is that she has stressed repeatedly that she is a lesbian. She is not bisexual. She is not seeking out dick. She is like 100% a lesbian and is representation for the lesbian community. Not like only for lesbians, but this happens a lot with women in pop culture where it's more comfortable to designate them as bisexual. Gotta make sure that we got that element of, oh yeah, you love dick, but not every queer woman is bisexual.
The societal pressures that girls feel, especially lesbians. And the conflicting feelings that come with being gay and having to hide parts of yourself to please other people. It's not rocket science. And obviously, you don't have to hand over a checklist of your entire sexuality and every experience you've ever had to enjoy the song. On the flip side though, I understand why this is frustrating for some people, because Chappell Roan is a lesbian. She has said that she's a lesbian. And so while people are talking about how they specifically relate to this song, the argument here is that this specific interpretation is erasing Chappell's identity as a lesbian. And it feels like lesbians can never just have their own thing. It always has to be co-opted by bisexual or other queer people who through their own processing feel as though they have to boil down every specific experience to their relationship to a man. Similarly, this discussion has led to people debating the history of Chappell Roan's entire sexuality, because while she has said recently that she identifies as a lesbian, people are sort of picking apart what she said in previous interviews and lyrics from other songs that she's written.
Do any women seek out dick, or is it simply tolerated? Depends on the dick. depends how good the dick is. Now, there have been some cases where women are with men and you think to yourself, the dick can't possibly be that good. Okay, let's be real. I have a I have a friend from college who is married to someone who is, kind of has the personality of a napkin. And the way that she has talked about their sex life, I'm like, I have a hard time believing the dick is that good, but I guess I gotta go off of what you're saying here, because I won't know for myself. No, thank you.
And they're going, oh, but this is about a man. This is about a man. As if sexuality cannot change as you get more comfortable with yourself over time, which, from what I understand, is what happened to Chappell Roan. And you may argue that, like, none of this matters. You know, you can't police who relates to your music, especially as an artist gets bigger and bigger and finds a larger, more diverse audience of people. I think ultimately this boils down to a representation issue, in the sense that Chappell Roan is one of the biggest pop stars out there right now, and she is a lesbian, and fans of her who identify with that same group don't want her identity to be watered down or to be commodified to appear more palatable. And like, I hope me explaining it makes you understand what the debate actually is here, so you don't automatically write it off as like completely terminally online. Because I think this is honestly the most sound argument of the ones that we're gonna go through here. I may not agree with it entirely, but like, going into this with an open mind and trying to learn another perspective, it's something that I do understand. Number 2. If you are a bisexual woman, I guess don't bring your cis-het boyfriend to see Chappell Roan.
I hate
so,
this argument.
Anyway, we went to Govball this weekend and saw Chappell Roan live in concert. It was a wonderful experience. You've probably seen these kind of drone shots by now of like this massive
is the stupidest
crowd
discourse
over at Citi Field, and we were probably like directly in the middle of it, and honestly, it did not even feel that big. Now, I guess I'm not going to directly argue with the contents of this tweet because it also was related to pride and not just, bringing your straight boyfriend to Chappell Roan. And like, that feels more of like a separate issue to me. Because, like, yeah, obviously Pride is a queer space, and allies are welcome depending on who you talk to about it. But, like, you can't restrict who attends a concert
not a safe
because the artist is gay. Never in a million years has that ever been a thing. Or, like, mainstream pop acts at the very least. Should Chappell Roan's concerts be a safe space for queer people? Yeah, of course, and she would probably agree with that. I think the root of this discourse and everyone who I see agreeing with this tweet is misguided in the sense that, like, they are seeing the crowds that Chappell is pulling at these festival events, and they're realizing that it's going to be more difficult to get tickets to see her now than it ever previously has been. And that is a very real frustration, because probably a year or two ago, you could have seen her for a relatively cheap price in a small venue, and now she's another artist that by default has to join the rat race of Ticketmaster and reselling and ridiculous arena fees. I complain about this a lot as someone who likes to go to live events like theater and concerts and sports. Prices are insane and the market is so unbelievably hostile right now, and I understand the frustration. But that frustration can't be aimed at people who are able to go, because they're not taking a spot from you. Sometimes people save up a lot of money to go see artists they really like. Sometimes they just fucking go into debt, which I don't recommend. Sometimes they're just looking for really good deals. I know a lot of people who did that for Govball this weekend, just going to the Reddit and trying to find people to sell and buy from. I hope every gay person or straight person or whoever who wants to see Chappell Roan gets to see her eventually.
I get it that it is frustrating when an artist you love blows up, and because of the predatory nature of sites like Ticketmaster and just how fucking expensive concerts have gotten these days, like, it sucks when it becomes something that you can't afford to do anymore. But it doesn't mean that you should like hate on people who are now fans of someone that you claim to have been a fan of longer.
It is a very good show, I can tell you that. But if you got priced out of Chappell Roan,
yeah, your enemy is
Ticketmaster.
Ticketmaster.
It's not their fault. It's not the straight boyfriend's fault. It is the fault of the monopoly that runs the live ticketing industry in America and consistently fucks everything up for everyone. The government said they were gonna do something about this, and to my knowledge, they still haven't. And speaking of the government, that brings me to number 3. Chappell Roan is actually not an ally to the LGBTQ community because she protested going to the White House to perform for Pride, however, is still performing in
Oh my
red
God,
states
this is
with
so
anti-LGBTQ
dumb.
legislation. Now, this is an interesting...
Okay, people were mad that she was performing in red states. When it's like, there are lots of queer people in red states. Okay, there are lots of people who don't support the actions of state governments. What are we doing? What are we talking about? Like, what? Why should people in red states be cut off from artists who are queer, like Chappell Roan, who have stand on like are outspoken about their leftist beliefs? Like, why should people in red states have to be punished for the actions of their state governments, especially when often state governments are representing a minority of voters? It's not like all those people voted on those anti-LGBTQ bills. Livers should have voted, brother.
One, because I was actually there for this. At GovBall on Sunday, Chappell came out in drag dressed as the Statue of Liberty.
God, she looks
took a moment
so
to
good.
proclaim her support for gay rights, trans rights, and in her words, the liberation of all occupied territories. Later on in the show, before playing My Kink is Karma, she dedicated the song to the Biden administration, who she says invited her to perform for Pride, and then this is what she said.
We want liberty, justice, and freedom for all. When you do that, that's when I'll come.
Now, this makes perfect...
You know what? You know what that energy of, oh, you live in a red state, then you don't get to complain about anything. Like, why don't you just leave? That's giving when dumbasses will tell you, well, why don't you just leave America? Like, you have a problem with America? Then just leave. That's not the answer there. There are a lot of people who live in red states who can't just leave and also have valid reasons as to why they don't want to. Now, for some, it's gotten to a point that it's so oppressive. Yeah, they've had to leave. My best friend, who is married to a woman in Louisiana, and they're looking at having children, have been having this conversation with me where she and her wife are considering having to leave Louisiana because of how just oppressively awful it has become. And that's a decision that is not an easy decision to come to, but it's also not one that we should expect every person in these red states to A, have the resources, or B, be like have to do. Like, if my friend stayed in Louisiana, which is her home, which is where her sisters live, which like a lot of Louisiana she does love. If she stayed there, I wouldn't be like, oh, well, you don't get to complain about them taking your rights away in Louisiana because you stayed there. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Makes sense to me, given the statement that she came out with dressed as the Statue of Liberty in the beginning of the set, but this completely fucking outraged people. So basically the argument that I'm showing here in these tweets boils down to, why would Chappell Roan decline an invitation from the most pro-LGBTQ administration of our nation's history and still continue to perform in red states? This is an incoherent argument, and
I hate the condescension here. She's performing in the capital of North Carolina, the state that passed the original bathroom bill, tomorrow. But go off, Queen. It's never enough for people, honestly. Honestly, we just love to use our little internet slang, and like, I've just been so fucking brain broken by the internet. Like, we don't have the ability to stop for 2 seconds and go, am I perhaps being a big dumbass right now? Am I perhaps being incredibly condescending and short-sighted? No! Because this, like, 17,000 likes. 17,000 likes. And all it does is reinforce, yes, I am very smart and very good. I was 100% correct in my thrashing of Chappell Roan here. And so, therefore, there is no need for me to take a moment and think about if maybe this isn't actually the right mindset. That this is actually a really reductive way of looking at things.
And still continue to perform in red states. This is an incoherent argument, and I'll get into both parts of it, so let me address the first part first. Why would Chappell Roan, who has primarily courted an audience of young left-leaning queer people, presumably sharing those same values as well based on the aforementioned statement she made in her set, not want to perform at the White House right now? Fucking beats me, I don't know, man. Now, the second part of this argument is even dumber to me, because all of these tweets imply that what Chappell Roan should really be focusing on if she wants to demonstrate an act of—
It's honestly the same energy as the we should improve society somewhat, yet you participate in society. Curious, I am very intelligent meme. Like, I know that that's usually directed towards dumbass right-wingers, but it is the same energy. Oh, Chappell Roan making the decision not to perform at the White House because Joe Biden is supporting a genocide. Oh, wow, yet you performed in North Carolina, the originator of the bathroom bill. Curious, I am very smart.
Protest is refusing to play in anti-LGBTQ states, or rather states that have passed anti-LGBTQ laws, which completely disregards the fact that there are LGBTQ people in those states who want to see her perform and are not responsible
there's no
for
gay
the acts
people in
of
those
their state
states.
governments. You know what's an even bigger act of protest? Traveling to these states and performing as a visibly and openly queer person anyway. This is not that difficult, guys. Ultimately, I don't understand why there is such a big uproar over this. It is not shocking, nor is
Yeah, that's a great point. It's like, these are the fucking states that are calling drag queens pedophiles and are passing insane legislation to repress LGBTQ rights. And you have someone like Chappell Roan, whose whole goddamn aesthetic is drag, who is unashamedly a lesbian, who wears drag. And that is an amazing way to shove it in the faces of these extremists. They'd have a point if she was performing in Israel, not going to the Carolinas. Right, exactly. Like, there's a difference between the NCAA major league disrupting the local economy by not hosting the Final Four there and a single music artist not playing a concert. Yeah, I just think it's a very dumb way of thinking.
surprising if you know literally anything about Chappell Roan or her audience. And like, just to get ahead of some dumb arguments here, does this mean that I am actively encouraging the Biden administration to not reach out to LGBTQ people? No, they should be doing that, but they should probably take a nice hard look at why that demographic is not responding to their outreach. Probably before November. They should probably really investigate that before November. Okay, last one we're going to talk about today. Chappell Roan is in fact not that good. She is actually overrated. Now this one is just kind of trivial, and it generally happens every time an artist gets really popular, especially if they are popular with women. In particular, I've seen the argument, you know, after this Gov Ball set and after Chappell Roan basically came out in drag and made a lot of very poignant statements, drew this massively large crowd when a year or two ago not as many people knew her name. It is very reminiscent of one Stephanie Germanotta, also known as Lady Gaga. I will go as far as to say that I don't think we've had a Lady Gaga since Lady Gaga. I don't think anybody has respectably filled that void. She's, you know, a once in a generation. Do I think Chappell Roan can get there? Absolutely she can. I think it's really dependent on the music she puts out from this point. The risks she takes, what she does when she gets in front of a bigger and bigger audience. The momentum is there, the potential is there, and I don't think that saying that is sacrilegious. But if you personally don't feel that way, like there's never gonna be another Lady Gaga to you, that is also fair and valid. I just don't think that people with that opinion should automatically discount Chappell Roan's appeal and talent because people are making that comparison.
Church of
Are people
Snails,
going to
thank you
continue
for
to
the
be
5
weird
months.
about her for as long as she's
Live,
this
laugh,
popular?
love, Chappell
yeah,
Roan.
happens all the time. Nothing new I've seen. But if you're a Chappell Roan stan, I wish you the best. Because I think this next year or two is gonna be one hell of a ride. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I will
link this for y'all. Oh boy. Too many takes all the time.